Welcome everyone. This is our third session about merging the CAPI functionality of the Classic Manager into the new Nfield Manager. It's our third session. We had two almost a year ago. We got a lot of feedback on what we presented then, and we decided to take a step back and actually rethink some of that based on your feedback. And we are now ready to proceed again with this. So what are we doing? This is the agenda. We have a short introduction. Most of it will be a demo. Then I will share a timetable when we are turning things off in the new manager, or when we are turning things off in the Classic Manager. And as always, we have some time for questions. This will only be about the basic survey, so one of the survey types of CAPI. The basic survey really is a basic survey, so I do not expect that this will take very long, 30 to 45 minutes, I think. So, the introduction. Those of you who already were present at the two previous meetings will recognize these slides because we also shared these in these meetings. What is the case? We have two managers. We have a CAPI manager, which we are called the Classic Manager, and an online manager, which we will call the Nfield Manager from now on. And we would like to merge these two managers into one single manager. Why do we want to do that? Well, having two managers for one product is confusing. Some people need to look in both managers to actually find what they are looking for. That is expensive. That is expensive for us. We need to test everything in two managers, which basically doubles our time, which doubles our test time. Features that are missing from the Classic Managers, for instance, a few on sample are already present in the Nfield Manager, in the online manager, and instead of building them in the Classic Manager, it makes more sense to actually move the CAPI to that manager. And finally, not the most important one, but it is a consideration. The Classic Manager has an outdated look and feel. Now, how will this merge take place? As said, the CAPI functionality will be merged with the Nfield Manager, and we will do that one scenario at a time. And when we are talking about scenarios, what do we mean? Well, a scenario is a basic survey type. I will explain shortly what that exactly is. Survey what sampling points, survey what sampling points and addresses, and survey what sampling points, addresses, and quota. Those are all four different scenarios. We will probably not do them in 4 steps. These will probably be 3 steps. And the first step we do today, and that is the basic survey. Set the scenarios will be closed in the Classic Managers when introduced in the Nfield Manager. And at the end of this meeting, I will share the exact time frame when we will do that for the basic survey type. What will be merged? All functionality in the current Classic Manager will be merged, and most of the functionality in the Nfield tool will be moved to the Nfield Manager. Finally, where can I find this Nfield Manager? For those of you who do not have an online license and only use CAPI, the Nfield Manager has a different URL, and here you can see the URL for your specific region. Any questions at this point, Art? Otherwise, I will go into the demo.
Go ahead. No questions so far.
Okay. Then the demo. In the demo, I will start with the Classic Manager. I will use the Classic Manager to actually make to show you what exactly will be merged in this step. I will go over the scenarios in the Classic Manager, so actually know what this looks like in the Classic Manager, and then we will go to the new manager and see how to set such a survey up in the new manager. So let's go. Oops. to the Classic Manager. And there we are. Now, what will we move in this step? If we go to Add Survey and the survey type, here are the 4 survey types, and the survey type that we will be moving in this step is this type, CAPI without sampling points. That is what we call the basic survey. This survey type will be moved to the new manager in this step. I will actually not create that right now because I have already created 3 different flavors of this survey type. One without a quota, which we will call in the new manager the free intercept. One with no sampling points but a wet quota. And then what we call in the classic manager work packages, what we call in the new manager the individual targets. And then one with no sample points, quota, and joint targets, which is also in the new manager called joint targets. Let's open the free intercept. So what is the process of this survey type in the classic manager? We have all the settings on this detail page. As you can see, there's a setting quota target type, which doesn't make any sense at this point because this is free intercept. We don't have a quota. So the fact that this is a free intercept is very implicit here. It's a free intercept because there is no quota. We have made that a little bit more explicit in the new manager. So basically, I need to upload a quota file, which I have already done, of course. And assignment in the classic managers, we simply go to interviewers. We add an interviewer to the list. It's then inactive and unassigned, and we simply have to select the interviewer, assign it, and that's it. That is how an assignment in a free intercept in the basic, in the classic manager works. Let's very quickly look at the assignments. If we do a work package survey, then we need a quota, because we need at least a target to create these work packages. This is the quota frame that was created for this survey, and assignments for this type of survey. Again, we need to add an interviewer. So let me add this interviewer again to this. And then we need to activate this, this interviewer. And there are actually 2 ways you can do this. As soon as you are using quota, you can go to quota and then allocate this interviewer. And then you are actually allocating this interviewer to this particular quota frame. You need to tell them how many interviews you want to allocate. You click allocate, and this has been allocated. And the other way you could assign an interviewer is by simply, again, selecting it and click assign here. And then you have activated this interviewer. You have assigned them to the survey, but without the quota frame. So in practice, this means that you have created a free intercept for this particular assignment. Again, this is very implicit in the new interface. We have made this way more explicit than like this. Assignments for the joint target surveys, it's basically the same. We have the quota, somewhat simpler quota here, and assignments for these survey types go very much the same. You add an interviewer. And again, I could decide to make this a free intercept by simply selecting this interviewer and assigning him, or, which usually will be the case, I actually want them to work on that quota frame because there isn't a quota frame for no reason, and that means go to the quota frame and then allocate this interviewer. This time we don't have to choose how many we want to assign to this interviewer because they're all working towards the same targets, so they all get the same target. So this is how these 3 flavors of the basic survey looks in the classic manager. Any questions at this point, Art?
No.
Okay. Then let's go to the new manager and let's see what this looks like in the new manager. So, as you can see, I don't have to log in. That is not because there is no login for this for the Nfield Manager. That is because this is just a different interface on the same services as the Classic Manager uses, and I am already logged in the Classic Manager, so that means I am also logged in into this manager. First thing that we see here, the 3 surveys that we just looked at are actually also visible in the new manager. Every basic survey that you create in the Classic Manager will already be visible in the new manager. Shortly, we will talk what you can then exactly do with these surveys. Let's first actually try to create a CAPI survey and look at the steps. One word of warning, those of you with only a CAPI license will miss some of these steps here because some of these steps are actually online steps. And if you only have a CAPI license, you will only see the CAPI functionality. You will also see this here. If I click plus, that means I will create a new survey. And because I have an online and CAPI license, I can choose to create an online or a CAPI survey. I will do a CAPI survey for now. We'll call that new free intercept. And as you can see, I don't have to choose what survey type I'm going to use. That is not because there is only one survey type at this moment in the online manager. That is because we have actually moved the decision of the survey type later on, because the survey types we actually know are not as much survey types. There are different assignment methods. And we have moved that decision to the point where you actually start making that assignments where that makes a lot more sense than immediately in the beginning when you create a CAPI survey. So let's create this CAPI survey. We need a questionnaire. So we'll land on this page where we can upload the questionnaire. Exact questionnaire doesn't matter. It's a very short questionnaire. We will not be doing any interviews. We just need a questionnaire to set this up completely. Because this is a free intercept, well, there's also field work. Let's take a short look at this step. This is where all the settings are that you saw in the detail page in the Classic Managers. All the settings except the joint targets and the work packages, because those have moved to the sample and assignment page where they, I think, actually belong within that work process. So this is where the settings are. We'll accept all these settings. We could go to quota and create a quota, but this is a free intercept. We don't need quota. So I will skip that part and immediately go to sample and assignments. And as you can see here, this is then where we can choose whatever. This is a free intercept, joint target, or individual target. I could also choose if these are sampling points per quota. That one will probably not be visible in your domain. It's visible in my domain because I'm testing that at this point. So it's free intercept. I cannot choose for joint targets or individual targets at this moment because that requires a quota, and I have not created a quota. I could configure quota from this page. It will set me to the exact same page that we saw previously. I will not do that right now. Let's go simple assignment. Let's actually say, yeah, we want free intercept. We need to save that, and as soon as we have saved that, as soon as we have decided on our sampling type, you will see that interviewers and quality tabs appear here. And in interviewers, I can actually start making my assignments. Let's do that. We have added one thing to these assignments. Those of you that are using sampling points and addresses will probably already be familiar with The fieldwork offices, if you only use the basic survey type, you will probably have never seen those fieldwork offices, because in the classic managers, you can only use them for sampling points. But we have also made those fieldwork offices now available for the basic survey type. So if you start assigning, you can actually create a filter, choose for your fieldwork office. And I will choose fieldwork office Amsterdam, and I will get all my interviewers from this particular fieldwork office, and I can then decide to assign them immediately all four, or if I want to assign only one, I can still open and then decide to assign only this one, or if I want to even make a further filter, I could say a filter like this, and that will then filter down to only these two interviewers, and then I can click assign. I need to confirm that. And then these two interviewers will be assigned to the survey as a free intercept. There are no interviewers to assign it, basically because I'm looking at the available interviewers, and I have just assigned all my available interviewers that meet this filter. If I remove the filter, the interviewers that are still available will appear. Go to assignments and actually check, okay, these are the two interviewers that I have assigned. I can decide to unassign them here, or simply wait until they start doing their work. So this is how you assign a free intercept survey. If at this point I say, okay, if we do not want a free intercept survey, I would like to change this, that is actually still possible. Not if I go to sample and assignments, to sampling methods again. I cannot actually change that. But if I go back to interviewers, and I cannot change this because I still have assignments here, actually the free intercept type, as you can see here. So what I need to do, I need to unassign these interviewers. And now I don't have any assignments anymore. And if I now go back, and I don't have any work already started on this one, and if I now go back to sampling methods, I can actually change the joint targets and an individual target can come, provided, of course, I have a quota. So let's go to the quota setup page. Let's create a quota. Gender. Female. This is those of you working with online will recognize this interface. It's the exact same interface we use to create online quota frames. So we'll start with you create the variables, you create the levels. Questionnaire variable name is suggested as the same name as the variable name, and just like in CAPI, you can decide whether this is a mandatory quota level or not. Mandatory in this case means that your interviewer will have to select this quota frame before he actually starts an interview. Next step is then order and nest variable. This is somewhat different from how you are used to create interlocked surveys in the classic manager. You create interlocked surveys here by simply shifting age one step further than gender, and now you have interlocked age with gender. This example, I will not interlock surveys. I will simply go to the next step, and that is targets. For CAPI surveys, we only at this moment have minimum targets. So the maximum targets that those of you that use online are not available for CAPI, just like the other recent quota features for online are not available for CAPI yet. Save this, and if we now go back to sample and assignments, we can actually choose joint targets or individual targets. This time, let's choose individual targets. And as soon as we have confirmed that, we can start our assignments. So we'll go to interviewers again, and this is the exact same step. I assign interviewers by creating a filter. I will create the same filter as before. So that field work office is Amsterdam. And that will get me these 4 interviewers. Let's also get them down to 2 again. And I can then decide, okay, I assign this interviewer. I do not have to step to the quota as in the Classic Manager. I simply assign these interviewers, click on Assign to. And if I now say, okay, on second thought, I do not want these interviewers to actually work inside that quota frame. I want them to be a free intercept, which is what you will do in the Classic Manager by simply assigning them outside the quota frame. I can still do this by simply selecting Use Free Intercept here. And that will mean you will get a warning here that these interviewers will now not work towards your target. We don't want that for this particular one. We want them to assign, and we need to set a target how many we want to distribute to these ones. We'll say 20. Click Assign. And then these 2 interviewers are assigned. So if we go to assignments, we see those 2 interviewers. We can open them again, and then again decide to unassign them or to change this assignment from the quota assignment to the free intercept. We can still do this at this point. And we can take a look at the assigned quota. And here I could decide to change the actual targets this interviewer is doing on this particular quota frame. So this is the free intercept, or this is the individual targets. And again, if I go to sample and assignments, sampling methods, I cannot change this because I have already created assignments from individual targets. And I could change it by, again, unassigning all these interviewers, provided, of course, that these interviewers are still inactive. As soon as they are active, I cannot unassign that anymore. Yeah, I can unassign it, but it will not free up my sampling methods because some of it is still out in the field. Now I can decide to change the targets again. So I will make a joint targets. I can immediately go to save because I already have that quota frame. And that's it. Go to interviewers. And I can do my joint targets interviewer and joint assignments here, which is still knows the latest filter I used. So that's nice. And I can immediately say assign these 2. The only difference here, I don't have to type in the target number because they're all working towards the same target. I could still decide to assign these 2 as free intercept, and will not do that. I will assign them to the joint target. And as you can see, here are the assignments, joint target type. With the same options again, I can unassign, I can change it to a free intercept for this particular interviewer if I wanted to, and I can take a look at the actual quota assigned to this interviewer. I cannot change that quota here because this is a joint target. If I want to change the joint target quota, I actually will have to go to setup survey quota and change the targets here. Okay, any questions at this point, Art?
No, all clear so far.
Okay, then let's go one step back to the surveys. As said, when we first landed on this page, there are 3 surveys that we created or that I created in the Classic Manager are actually already visible in this new online manager. Now, what can we do with these surveys? If I open this one, the individual targets, you can see it opens on the page, and the only thing it says on this page that this survey needs to be migrated because it was created in the Nfield CAPI Manager, in the Classic Manager. You cannot do anything. You cannot manage this survey in the new manager until you have migrated this survey. Now, let's actually migrate the survey. Simply click this button. OK, that will start the migrating process. And it now says that this survey was successfully migrated. What does that mean? That means I can now manage this survey in the new Nfield Manager. It also means one more thing. If I go back to the Classic Manager and to the list of surveys, you will see that this survey is no longer listed here because you can no longer manage that survey from the Classic Manager. So as soon as you have migrated the survey, you can only manage that survey from the new manager. We have migrated the survey. Let's take a close look if everything went fine. There's the quota. Oh, the quota has been migrated. All my fieldwork settings have been migrated. In the sample and assignments, you can see it's migrated as an individual target, which is indeed what it was. And I can see the assignments that I've done in the old manager. I'm the only one that actually did some work on this particular survey, and I could actually see what the assigned quotas. Also see what it exactly is that I did, just like in the Classic Manager. Quality control, just like in the Classic Manager, where I can decide to approve, reject, or reset a particular interview. So that's migration. Any questions?
No questions. So for people that have there's a question coming in. So I was just saying to everyone, if you have a question, please use the chat function for your questions. But there is a question on the assign interviewer space. Is it possible to show the interview ID?
No, you will not. We will not show the interview ID. What we show here on this particular page. Let me actually go to this one and go to sample and assignments, interviewers, and then I need to go. No. Available interviewers. Let's remove everything here. What we do show here is the interviewer name, and this is actual the login name that you see between brackets here, and this is what you can use. So you can filter on display name, first name, last name, username, whatever this is an active interviewer or not, the last sync date, and the fieldwork offers not on the actual interviewer ID. I would also say that is unwanted because your interviewer IDs should not carry a meaning, and they probably do if you want to filter on that interviewer ID and say move that to the username and not to the interviewer ID. Okay, let's move to the.
There's another question, Frank.
Yeah.
Where we could look for a survey ID in the Nfield Manager?
That's a good question. Yeah. Okay. Indeed, that is different from the Classic Manager. If you look at the URL, this particular part here, this is the survey. This is the survey ID. So what you are used to in the Classic Manager, if you go to the survey list, that you also see the survey ID here, but you won't see that as soon as you actually select a survey, you will actually see the survey ID in the URL. Okay.
Yes, thanks, Frank. I have another question. Not sure if I understand this myself, but is it possible to assign quota in different language?
No, because your quota cannot be in different languages. Your quota has to be in one default language, because otherwise the frame will not understand. You cannot fill that quota frame.
Okay, thank you very much.
Your quota frame will always be in a default language, and you have to make sure in your script that if you are using translations for those quota levels, that in your script those quota levels are then rescored to the default quota level, so you can fill your quota correctly. Yeah.
Thanks. These were the questions.
Okay, then let's continue, and the next one is the timetable. What we will do, as said, we will first turn off the creation of these basic surveys in the Classic Manager. We will do so early December. In the first release in December, we will turn off creating basic surveys in the Classic Manager. So from that point onwards, you can still use the Classic Managers for the CAPI surveys that were created already, but you cannot create new you cannot create new basic surveys in the Classic Manager. You have to create those surveys from that time onwards in the new manager. That also means that the API, which at this moment, if you use the API to create a basic survey, the API will create this in the Classic Manager. From early December, the API will create those surveys also in the new Nfield Manager. In January, early January, we will hide all the basic surveys in the Classic Manager. So from that point onwards, you can no longer use the Classic Manager to actually manage those basic surveys. You will have to migrate all the basic surveys at that point to the new manager. Please do not wait with migrating these surveys till January. So you can see the migrating works at this moment, so you could even migrate those surveys right now. And certainly if you have a complicated survey with a complicated quota frame, please migrate those surveys as soon as possible. We do not expect any problems. We think we pretty much have covered all the scenarios, but I'm also reasonably sure that some of you might have thought of ways of using that quota frame that we did not thought of. And there might be some French cases where you actually run into problems migrating that survey. And if those are there, we need to find this out as early as possible. So we have 2 more months to actually solve that problem. So that is the one tip that I would want to give everybody. Please migrate your surveys as soon as possible, so that if you run into troubles migrating that survey, we have time to solve those problems. Okay, any final questions?
Yes. Can we migrate surveys that are in field? Are there any things?
The surveys that I just migrated, that you saw me migrated, is a survey that actually is in field at this moment.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and the question I expected was about the Nfield tool. Will that work with the Nfield CAPI for the assignments?
You cannot use assignments at this point for the basic surveys. That is, you can use those assignments for sample points. So let's talk about that when we are actually talking about sample points, and not for this survey type.
And on the basic level, the Nfield tool, as far as it can be used for the basic surveys, will also work in a new manager?
Yeah. It will understand what in which manager this survey is active, and it will create the correct quota frame for that. Yeah.
Okay, and will this be available in Nfield CAPI survey type with addresses?
That is one of the things that we will be moving later. The next thing that we move is sample points with quota. And the third step is sample points with quota and addresses. So that is actually the third step, which we will probably be doing somewhere first half next year.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Then the final remarks. As always, recordings of this session will be available later this week. Manuals will be updated. They are mostly updated at this point. They will certainly be completely updated come December, when we actually, you must start creating your surveys in the new manager. Next Academy session, as said, the next step that we will do in migrating these surveys will be sample points per quota. So our next Academy session will be about that particular point. That will probably be in December. The next Academy for online will be about resume behavior. We are testing some features that will give you somewhat more control over what part of the question is executed when resuming and how that is executed when you resume a suspended survey. Again, there will be an Academy about that, probably also in December. So if there are no more further questions.
There's just one question coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, in future, once SSO single sign-on is active for everyone, is there a plan to merge regional specific managers through a single URL instead of one URL for each region? After logging through.
No, there are no such plans.
Okay, thanks. No, nothing else coming in.
Okay, and thank you for joining. And talk to you in the next Academy, which for the CAPI clients will be the Academy about sample points moving to the new manager. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thanks, Frank. Bye bye.